Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun. This is a great escape from the office, and also food is always a good draw. And so it's also nice to see you. I know I met some of you over Zoom, so it's nice to see you in person. So I passed around a list of programs that we're currently leading at the Sustainability Office. It actually doesn't capture all of them, but I'll talk about them in a little more detail. But before that, I want to talk about the creation of the sustainability role. So Marian sort of hinted at this. She mentioned the warrant article at the town meeting in 2020. Along with that article also came a declaration, an emergency declaration that declared a climate emergency and called for net zero by 2030, or actually called for net zero as early as possible with a target date of 2030 with appropriate state and federal support. So that really set a very ambitious target. It's actually one of the most ambitious targets in all of Massachusetts. The state target is net zero by 2050. And so we are sort of charged to take a much bigger leadership role to try to reach net zero even quicker than the state. And so my role as sustainability director is to lead the climate action planning process to try to get us to net zero as quickly as possible with a target date of 2030. So we are honoring the declaration, and I'm gonna actually go ahead and jump into the programs we're running.
Okay.
So the first is Energize Acton. So this is in coordination with environmental advocates in the town of Acton who have been pushing for a website that lists all the things that people can take at an individual level, like on their own, at home, on their commutes to work. So there's a list of 15 actions that residents and business owners can take. Everything from switching to an electric vehicle, to electrifying your home, to farming more, supporting local farmers. So there's a list of things you can do. It's a really exciting program. It's 100%, pretty much 100% led by volunteers. I think Marianne will know because she manages a lot of volunteers. At the Town of Acton, we have a ton of volunteers. So it's really, we really depend on volunteers to do a lot of this work. And they are the ones who also push for this emergency declaration. So the Town of Acton is really an engaged community. And this website is an example of that. And the town is supporting them by providing the financial support to create this website. And people can create teams, and you can have competitions. So you can compete with like a school, like Acton can compete with the middle school, for example, or high school students within the like classes can compete with each other, or businesses can compete with each other. So it has a platform like where you can actually track what you're doing as an institution. So
and that's on the website?
Yeah,
okay.
And it has we have the QR code here so you can check it out. The second thing is Abode. So we developed a partnership with a company called Abode, and it's a group of experts who provide any expert advice on your home and business transition. So suppose you live in a home that is gas powered or propane powered or oil powered, and you want to switch to electric because your heating system's about to break, or you just want to make the switch because you really want to emit less greenhouse gas emissions. You can call Abode and they'll give you, they'll do everything from telling you what sort of systems make sense for your needs to giving you like support with comparing quotes. And really the purpose of this is because it's a really complicated world, the electrification world, and even though the technology has existed for a long time, it's still a relatively new trend in Massachusetts, especially when it comes to like retrofits, like getting people to switch their systems. So the purpose of this is to provide advice so people don't end up spending too much money on something that maybe should be a lot cheaper, like a smaller system, to really meet your needs. And I'm not going to dive into the technical pieces because it's easy to do that, but the overall purpose of this program is to address emissions in the building sector, which is is the second highest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the town of Acton. So this is one resource to help people voluntarily make the switch to reduce the emissions from the building sector. And I can answer questions as to, why electrification, and I'd be happy to, but I'll continue into the next program so I don't, like I said, bore you with the technical pieces. Then the third one is climate action planning. So lots of towns and cities across Massachusetts set these climate action plans. And in the climate action plan is a list of strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change from various sectors. So for our climate action plan, we've divided it into buildings and energy, which is just over 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions, mobility, so transportation, which is 50% of our greenhouse gas emissions, and then nature-based solutions. We have a lot of open space here in Acton, so our trees help sequester carbon and store carbon, and they provide a lot of other what we call co-benefits, like clean air, a place to exercise and walk around. They also provide clean water. So there are a lot of other co-benefits that come with green spaces in addition to carbon sequestration. So we have a list of strategies for those as well. And then through the community input gathering process, we've had 8 public workshops, including one last Saturday, which was in person. So people were able to come and put stickies on the strategies that they really like, add comments for the strategies they really like, or what they'd like to adapt, or what they see is missing. So it's been a pretty extensive public outreach process. And the goal is to get as much buy-in from the community and also use it as an opportunity to build awareness about climate action in Acton, and about the climate action plan. So then come December, we'll have our strategies, and then we've hired consultants. We received state funding to hire consultants to do like a really deep assessment of all the strategies and figure out, okay, well, how much is it gonna cost to electrify the municipal fleet in 10 years? What sort of financial options are available for us to do this in the most cost-effective way? Where can we actually see savings? Where can we actually bring money into the town? So figure out what are the top priorities from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective, like what can reduce the highest emissions, but what is also like make sense from a cost-effective perspective. And so there are consultants who are really great out there who are going to do all the technical, difficult financial analysis for us and help us prioritize based on those factors as well. And then come May, when we have our town meeting, the select board will then vote on the climate action plan, and then we can start the implementation process. And then finally, you all call me here because of the polystyrene collection. So thank you, Marianne, for printing this out.
Yeah.
This is the dates of our collections, and you can pass that out. So we collect polystyrene or styrofoam the third Saturday of every month, and we have a little music interruption. Yeah. It's kind of nice. So styrofoam is a really tricky material to recycle, and the town of Acton has hired we've developed a contract with a vendor that lets us deliver polystyrene. It does come at a cost, it's not free. And Acton residents are really grateful. We get so much polystyrene and styrofoam on those days. We've had I wish we could measure it in pounds, because it's really light material, but the amount that's brought in is, I think it amounts to many, many tons. So we filled pretty much, I'd say we filled almost half of this restaurant with polystyrene bags. Wow. The first time we had a collection. So people stored the polystyrene or styrofoam in their garages for months and months and months, and then we had a collection and they were so happy to get rid of it and finally clear out their garages. But that's just one example of many initiatives that we're trying to pursue and reduce waste in the transfer station. We want to increase our waste diversion rate. So basically decrease the amount of trash we produce and increase the amount of material that it's recycled, that it's sent to composting, and really reduce the amount of trash we send to get burnt and then emit methane, essentially, which is also another greenhouse gas. that's about it. Do you have any questions?
I find it confusing to know about the various kinds of plastic film, or what's plastic, what's polystyrene, what's number 6, number 5, number 1, etc. Is there a guideline as to, and can I find that just by
Yes.
checking out the website?
It is very confusing,
Yeah.
and it changes depending where you are in the state too. And not every town has a polystyrene collection, for example. Many times they'll just tell you to put it in the trash or in the bin.
Right.
So there is a place on the website, and I'd be happy to link it over via email, and
great.
then make sure that you all receive it. But there's if you look up, what I don't know if it's that easy to Google actually, and that's something to look into. But on the town website, under the Department of Public Works, there's a guideline.
Okay. Good.
And there's a little search tool too, like what to recycle. If you want to actually put in the item that you're looking to recycle, there's an actual search platform, and it tells you what to do with it.
Okay.
And do you have any plans to completely ban this material?
So it's not my
Like some
role.
other towns have done?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. What's the root cause? So as a town staff, my role is to support citizens who might want to do that. So there is a group of residents who are actually trying to do that very thing. So the way I've been supporting them is by connecting them with towns that have done it, getting to learn what it looks like from a town perspective, like what does it look like to implement this? What are the impacts to the business community, and how can we sort of prepare the town of Acton to do something like this? But it is going to be presented at the next town meeting.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
So I see you don't take items, that were used for food, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably the main issue.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with, a lot of people come, one person came with 2 bags full of meat trays, and we couldn't take them, and they, painstakingly washed every single one, and it's a little heartbreaking when someone really wants to make a difference and they can't. And the vendors, I will say, probably no place, because we've looked into this, no place takes the polystyrene food containers. No vendor will, and it's because the material is really porous, and food gets in it, and even if you clean it, it's still in there, and it's considered contaminated. And it just makes the entire process of reusing the material that much harder. So they like the clean block styrofoam, and they turn it into they mush it all together in this machine that I really want to go visit just to see what it's like. But it's just it just scrunches it all together into this 3-ton block, and then they use it for material for shipping again. So that's a great story. A lot of it does end up in the landfill.
Is there any effort nationwide or globally, or just locally, to eliminate polystyrene?
Yeah.
And styrofoam?
Yes, there is. So the bans are one way of doing that. And that is something that's going to be presented at the town meeting in Acton. There are a ton of other towns that have already done this around Massachusetts. Globally, I'm not sure what the effort is. I know awareness is increasing. I think more and more people are aware of the amount of trash that's in the ocean, for example, the amount of plastic that's in the ocean. I think a lot of you, or maybe many of you, have seen the photos of the fish with their stomach cut out and plastic coming out. So it's not a pretty sight, and I think people are seeing the actual effects in real time. So I think there's a ton of, you can see a lot of movements for products that use plastic from the ocean and turn it into a toothbrush, or so I'd say overall it's a growing trend in terms of awareness. I don't know that it's enough, but certainly there's a much bigger appetite, much more appetite for a change.
So has it reached the federal government level in this country yet, or is it pretty much local and it'll grow and maybe start to affect the thinking in Washington, D.C. someday?
I'm not sure. That's a really good question. I want to say it's probably more local right now. So there's another resolution. It's called Extended Producer Responsibility. This is a push for companies to be basically responsible for the products they produce that are hard to recycle, and it gives them it creates like a small fee on that product, and it also incentivizes companies, like if they don't want that fee applied, to use like a more sustainable product. And what that also does is it helps kind of indirectly municipalities that have to bear the cost of dealing with these hard to recycle items. So we have to deal with recycling mattresses. We actually pay for that. Taxpayers pay for it. So instead of putting the burden on the end, you sort of put the burden at the beginning, and try to encourage responsible production of goods. And the best example is mattresses. So adding basically the fee of disposing to the actual mattress. I'd say in terms of at a federal level, I think it's tricky because you could argue there are impacts to the business community as well. So I think these efforts are probably more likely to start locally,
Right.
and which is exciting, right? There's a lot you can do at the local level, and then I think it could trickle up.
I mean, with the mattresses, could they make them out of biodegradable material, or has the science, the engineering not advanced that far yet?
There actually are mattresses that are made with like bamboo and natural, organic cotton.
Right.
And, there's actually a few mattresses. They're more expensive, I would say. So there's not a lot of cost comparative options yet, I don't think. I'm not an expert on this subject, so please don't quote me.
Well, we're going
on
to pay
this,
for it
but-
one way or the other, so.
Yeah, I know I personally bought a really good mattress that's really sustainable, and it was really expensive. And I really had to debate, oh man, I just got this job, I just moved here, do I get the cheaper mattress or do I spend a little more and not go out to eat? So that shouldn't be a burden that everyone has to go through.
Right.
Hopefully we'll get to a world where people can make good decisions without having to bear the cost. That would be the ideal world, and the way we do that is by increasing the market for these products.
Right.
And as you increase the market, and the supply, it becomes cheaper, or at least. Don't quote me on that either, because I'm not an economist.
Yeah, the price point comes down as sales volume goes up,
Right.
hopefully.
Right.
And just one quick follow-up question. The mattress that you got, does it last longer than a typical mattress that you get at a typical furniture store?
I'm not sure. I've had it for 8 months now.
Oh, okay.
I will keep you updated.
Yeah, I'd love to know that.
Yeah.
Does it last for 40 years or just 10 years before it
Hopefully
wears
it
out?
lasts longer, because
Okay.
that's the goal, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So why don't we have dinner, and maybe we can ask other questions of Andrea as we're eating. I'll turn this off, but thank you very much for joining us. And do you have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, there's a lot that I didn't talk about, like some of the initiatives in town to add more solar to our carports. There's a lot of exciting win-wins of actions that we're leading within the town itself that people really like. For example, we're working with the Natural Resources Department for a solar carport over Nara. And this is, solar carports are so exciting because they provide shading, they provide energy, and it's sort of like a win-win. It helps with snow too. So it's it's one of those things that everyone loves. And so that's been an exciting new project, and it's I would argue that that's low-hanging fruit.
Right.
It costs the town nothing to do them because we do what's called solar lease agreements. We get discounts on our energy, we provide shading, and then we help with plowing. So that's one example of an initiative we're doing here in town.
So if you want to send me a link to that list of other actions, I
Sure.
can include that in the text description for the video.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Steve, one quick question.
Sure.
So, Andrea, because we're the Rotary Club of Acton-Boxborough, are there initiatives that you work with surrounding communities like Boxborough?
Yes, Acton-Boxborough Regional School District, actually. And I should have mentioned that, yeah. Good question. So I'm working with Kate Crosby. If anyone knows her, she's the energy manager for the Acton-Boxborough Regional School District. She has created a group, or it's a club that, I'm not sure if she created it originally, but it's existed for a few years. And now she's helping to lead students through a climate action plan process. So basically the similar thing we're doing in town, but in school. And on Friday, they have their climate action plan process, and I'll be there supporting, but it's really been spearheaded by the students, and they're amazing.
Good.
And the students are doing a ton. Like they helped with the climate action plan we had, the climate action plan event we had on Saturday. And so that's been the biggest, I'd say, interaction with Boxborough. I have reached out to the town at separate occasions for like potential grant opportunities, like for example, like a bike share program. These things really don't know boundaries, right? If you want to get across to a certain part of town, or you want to cross from Boxborough to Acton and then go into Lexington, or Concord and Lexington, then the idea is to develop like a bike share line of different, so that you don't have to constantly change to a different bike type. So that's one example, like transportation, improving like cross-regional transportation options. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, big round of applause for Andrea
Yeah.
Becerra for being our guest speaker today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you